let us talk about how we care for African elders. How do we care for African elders? How do we do that? You know, sometimes we do hear that the lifespan in Africa is short, and there may be research to prove it. It's possible. But you see, anything that happens has a cause. So, what is the cause or the potential cause of um, short lifespan in Africa? What is it? Because one thing we do know is that Africans mostly eat organic foods. So, if they eat organic foods, why should there be reports that Africans have a short lifespan? Why? I'd like to know. Sometimes we receive information and we gulp it down, swallow it, you know, without a pinch of salt. We just say, okay, we heard that Africans have what they call short lifespan. But we don't make efforts to find out if it is true or not. So if it is true, why is it true? If it is false, why is it false? But we have to now go beyond receiving information and gulping it down. We got to know why. See, some things have to match up. Eating organic foods should have its own outcomes. Eating manufactured foods has its own outcomes. And then even beyond that level, eating genetically modified um, products, re-engineered, scientifically reworked to create specific results in plants and shrubs and whatever trees. But if Africans don't have access, I mean, on the most part, if Africans don't have access to the GMO systems, if they don't have access to the sophisticated kinds of fertilizers, why should the organic foods not yield the results expected for organic foods? We know that in a lot of developed countries, people are just talking about organic. Everywhere you go, organic, organic, organic. So if they're talking about organic, even in those climes where agricultural products are re-engineered and genetically modified, what would an African do? The average African, the everyday African, who has no choice other than to eat organic foods. Why should such an African look for scientific things in place of the natural things that he or she has? Why? I mean, we need to do a little thinking and maybe talking to each other about this. I believe in science. I'm a social scientist, and in every sense of that word, social scientist. So I can find things out. I can I can explore. I can pursue information that does not exist and get to it and expose what I found. So as a social scientist, I have not yet found the exact reason Africans would be eating organic foods and would still have short lifespan. Anyway, you know that there are usually exceptions to general rules. So what I'm talking about here are general rules. Because if you go to Africa, you see people living long, 100, you still see people who live up to 100 years, 110. You still see those people are there. But we still hear that Africans have a short lifespan. So we cannot just fold our arms and be looking. We have to think about it, do some exploration, do some inquiry. You know, there's something called inquiry, scientific inquiry. We can conduct scientific inquiry. We can do research. We can collect data from right where we are. Those things are not rocket science. If they were before, they are not anymore. Collect data. If these days you don't even have to spend money traveling, going anywhere to collect data. Begin from your local area. Find out in your village. Find out in your local county how old are people living in this area. Who is the oldest person in this village? Who is the oldest person in this entire county? You can find those things out. You tabulate your information, and people in all the different areas do the same thing, tabulate their information. So if there are like 700 counties in a country, for instance, then you find out who is the oldest person in each county and how old is that person. Is that person male or female? So, but then how do we care for them? Because we might find out that those ones who are living up to 100 might be outliers. So we need to go get to the mass conglomeration so we can find out how many people, or what is the age bracket of the majority in each area. But we still need the outliers, those who live up to 120, 110, 105. We need them so we can know how far they can go in that area, because we will later on try to find out what is in each area that is giving us the kind of result we are seeing in that area. In fact, what I'm talking about today should be a research activity. For many of you who are still pursuing your doctoral studies, and some who are about to start their dissertations, you can look into this. Any person in social science can do it. You don't have to be in healthcare or in public health or in any health field to be able to do this, because this is sociology, and it even leads to anthropology, because people begin to know how old people lived in your area 5 years ago. As time goes on, it becomes 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because the future generations will need that data for their planning. So now for the outliers, we've agreed on that. Now for the critical mass, for the conglomeration, for the general area, how old are they generally living? How many people are in that category? And based on what is happening in that area, are there chances that they can live up to 100 or 120? If there are chances, then find out, document what that is, so we can use it to equip other counties, other areas that may lack that knowledge. So what we want to do is to make sure that we begin to create proper care for our African elders. I mean, from country to country. Let us see how we can show affection, care, help, assistance to all those people who are already elders. They need attention, they need care, they need help. So let's find out what we need to do so that Africa altogether will begin to witness an increase in lifespan. This thing they call longevity is very, very important. Very important because the things you eat are part of it, but that's not all. The people around you, what are their behaviors? Okay, now let me talk to us because we are the ones to care for the elderly people in Africa. What is my behavior towards that old man or that old woman in my, not territory, in my area, in my domain, in my village, in my county? What is my attitude to that elderly person? You know that sometimes the attitude of love helps a lot. If people know that they are loved, they get happier. And when they get happier, they have the chances of living a little longer. If they are miserable and nobody makes them happy, no one cares about them, and they will just be living only one day at a time as they see it, nothing to live for, no fun, nothing to think about, that will help them, feel better. Those ones are likely to not live as long as they could have lived. So if we begin to configure the care that we should give to our elders, we should think about everything. It'll be wholesome. Some people say holistic. I don't mind using that word. Sometimes that word holistic begins to address a whole different area. So let me say wholesome, complete, so that the elders in Africa can begin to feel love from the people around them. They are elderly people because they've lived this life, done what they need to do, raised children, made money, saved money, invested money, gave out money, and have assets that other people will inherit when they pass on. So, who is going to inherit those assets? Is that person currently caring for that elder? Or is that person just lousing around and wishing the elderly person death so so that the property or the assets will become available to inherit? But we know that there's something called the law of retributive justice. Some call it karma. Some call it the golden rule. It has all kinds of names. When we do stuff, we receive it back. If someone in your area, in your family, in your village is an elder, it is your responsibility to show care of that elder because you are getting ready to become an elderly person. So you have to invest in that because you want to reap that care when it gets to your turn. So the way we care for our elderly people in Africa is very important because Africa has been described as a place where people have what do you call it? Short lifespan. We don't want short lifespan. We don't want it. We want people to live long. That's what we want. And we can help to engender that long life. Let's engender long life. Let's make it happen for our elderly people. Let us care because so many kinds of manufactured health solutions pour into Africa by way of imports. Imports. Healthcare solutions are being imported into Africa every time you look. So those imported, manufactured, synthesized, engineered health solutions don't look to me like a better way to go than the organic materials we have that we can consume. And if people in the developed countries are talking about organic, they want to eat organic, don't you know what it means to you? It means that you stand a chance of exporting organic foods. You stand a chance. Agriculture is where it all starts from. Even the engineered health solutions are byproducts of agriculture. So, why don't you think about using that to care for your elders? Make sure that the elderly people eat. Make sure that the elderly people smile. Make sure that they get up and look around, look at the skies, look at the cloud, look at the trees, and make sure that they are okay. Very, very important. Make sure they're okay. Because if they can go out, look around, look at the skies, look at the trees, and see people passing along the road and say hello to the people they know and everyone they meet. And of course, yeah, I guess you're familiar with this line. So if you give the elderly people the opportunity to go out, look around, walk around, say hello to people, shake hands, smile, and laugh is possible, then you are helping to prolong their lives. That is now in addition to the foods that are already organic. When that happens, we will begin to elevate the lifespan of our African elders. Very, very important because the older they live, the more we receive information under their tutelage. We need information because Africa is about oral tradition. These things are passed on from generation to generation. But if you don't treat your elderly person well, you are likely to not receive those pieces of information that you can hand over to the generations coming after you. And what that does is that your children and children's children will be in trouble because they will not live a wholesome life. There'll be a gap in their lives. There'll be something they will need to know that they don't know, and they may never know it because the elderly person in that family was not cared for by those who needed to care for those elderly people. So, our issue today is how do we care for the elderly on our continent? From country to country, from state to state, from county to county, from village to village, from compound to compound, among siblings. How do we care for the elderly people? We have talked about foods that are already organic. What else do we need? The average African family wants to make a pot of soup. They will just go to the backyard. The garden is there. They have a garden of pepper. They pluck pepper fresh from the stalk. They pluck okra. They pluck the vegetables, the pumpkins, the pumpkin leaves. They go to the river. They fish. They catch fish that they can cook the same day. They gather everything that they need from around them. They cook delicious meal, healthy meal, and live well. Once you can take care of that side, the other side is removing misery. Because see, a lot of times when people begin to grow old, they will begin to feel a little lonely because those children they toiled and struggled to raise, of course, they want to be successful. So they are becoming successful. But they become successful mostly far away from home. And when they are successful far away from home, the elderly parents don't receive care anymore. They will just be living. Yes, of course, the children who happen to be successful will be sending them money and sending messengers to come and see them. But that is not all they want. They want that care, that compassion, that immediate assistance, that companionship. They need it. So they can tell stories and anyone who happens to spend time close to an elderly person can testify that they learn a lot. And if you see people who grew up um, under the care of elderly people, when they talk, you can tell that they've been interacting with elderly people. When they do things, you can tell that they have been learning from elderly people. So, but if you see those people who just do things without principles and people who don't have any policies in life, and they just wake up, they do whatever they want to do. They see a girl, they fall in love, they marry, and they don't know that there are steps in Africa that the elderly people will take. We're going to talk about this particular example on a different day. But caring for the elderly people is what we're talking about today because when we care for our elderly in Africa, we stand the chance of learning about our roots, learning about our grandfathers, our grandmothers, where we come from, and the prestige or a lack thereof pertaining to where we come from. So if we learn those things and if we see what went wrong in the past, in the families where we come from, then we begin to change them. But if we don't learn about them, we will not do. We keep making those mistakes over and over. That is why we need to care for our elderly in Africa. Give them good food. The food is already organic. Give it to them to eat. Tell them stories. Tell them what you saw in the city. Tell them what you saw in the village. Tell them what you are thinking about life. They will tell you in return. They will tell you things you could never have imagined. They will tell you. So, the starting point is to care for our elderly people. Besides doing that to get information and to make them happy, we should do that for the sake of karma, for the sake of the law of retributive justice, for the sake of the golden rule, because what we give to people, that's what we get. So let's care for our elderly people. It is very, very critical to do so across Africa so that we can elevate the lifespan of Africa as a whole. So nobody can say Africans don't live long, they don't do this, they don't, yes, of course, sometimes you go to some parts of Africa where plunderers have created pollution of immense proportions. And so those pollutions also create health hazards that also lead to death. So when they say Africans don't live long, they have short lifespan, we got to find out from this initial process I described, especially I gave it as an assignment to those who are doing their dissertations now, or those who are getting ready to do their dissertations, people who need to collect data. So if they can do that from county to county, village to village, country to country, state to state, and all that, if they can do all that, so we can find out where there are more deaths. We can find out whether they have pollution. If they have pollution, what is the cause of the pollution? Is it mineral extraction? Is it exploration of mines and things? And is it the raising of too much dust into the air? Those things will let us know what's going on so that we can find out where there are better indices. We'll collect it and share the information across the board so that more people will get healthy and live longer across Africa. So we will not just be the continent where they keep talking about short lifespan. Please let us care for our elderly people. It is very, very important to do so. Let us care for our elderly people. Thank you.